News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Tanvi Taneja. Coming up in the next hour. G20 leaders' declaration urges action on conflicts, climate change. Prime Minister Narendra Modi highlights India's efforts to alleviate hunger and poverty. India and UK to relaunch trade talks in 2025, underlined the importance of resuming the free trade agreement negotiations. External Affairs Minister of India, Dr. S. Jaishankar, meets his Chinese counterpart in Rio de Janeiro, says noted progress in disengagement on the India-China border. In Hong Kong, 45 pro-democracy activists sentenced to prison. US, Australia and Taiwan criticized the trial as politically motivated. And in New Zealand, thousands rally outside Parliament against a bill that seeks to alter Indigenous rights. The 19th G20 Summit in Brazil enters the second day today, where the leaders of the group will meet to discuss crucial issues. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who is attending the summit in Brazil's Rio de Janeiro, will be addressing the session of sustainable development and energy transition. On the first day of the G20, on the sidelines of the summit, Prime Minister Modi met several leaders. The priority points across all the bilaterals were to review the cooperation in various areas of mutual interest. A look now at the key moments from Prime Minister's productive first day of the summit, underscoring the collective global commitment to addressing international challenges and fostering sustainable development. So DD India's Gautam Roy is in Rio de Janeiro and tells us what's in store for Prime Minister Modi and other leaders on day 2 of the summit.
Well, on day 2 as well, a lot of activity planned really in terms of Prime Minister Modi as far as his engagements are concerned. More bilateral engagements on the anvil. They've not been confirmed yet, but there could be as many as 4 or 5. Apart from that, the IBSA could have a meeting as well. That's India, Brazil and South Africa, a grouping that has been the troika as well as far as the G20 Summit is concerned. Apart from that, there's a session on energy transition and sustainable development as well, which Prime Minister Modi will be participating in along with the other leaders. So there's more to come as far as this G20 Summit is concerned, because that is one area, energy transition, which is crucial to how the world responds to climate change. Sustainable development is again an issue where a lot of funds need to be mobilized, keeping in mind that development is taken on a track where it gels well with the environment as well. So a lot of funding in that arena too, apart from responding to the kind of disasters that are taking place because of climate change. That is another track that could further be elaborated.
G20 leaders attending the summit in Brazil released the G20 Rio de Janeiro Leaders Declaration on Monday, outlining their concerns over major global challenges and crises, including social inclusion and the fight against hunger and poverty. At the summit, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, in his opening remarks, spoke about India's efforts to alleviate hunger and poverty.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed the G20 session on social inclusion and the fight against hunger and poverty in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. The Prime Minister spoke on a number of issues, including India's efforts to alleviate hunger and poverty, amplifying the concerns of the Global South, push for sustainable development goals. The Prime Minister said that the people centric decisions taken at the G20 Summit in New Delhi have been taken forward during Brazil's presidency. The Prime Minister expressed satisfaction over prioritizing SDG goals. The Prime Minister said that India focused on inclusive development, women led development, and youth power and gave wings to the hopes and aspirations of the Global South. The Prime Minister noted that it is clear that one Earth, one family, one future is as relevant at this summit as it was last year. The Prime Minister also shared India's experiences and success stories. He said that over the last 10 years, India lifted 250 million people out of poverty, while over 800 million people are being given food grains free of cost. 550 million people are benefiting from the world's biggest health insurance scheme. Now, 60 million senior citizens over the age of 70 will also be able to benefit from free health insurance. Maintaining a focus on women led development and social inclusion, over 300 million women micro entrepreneurs have been linked to banks and given access to credit. Under the world's largest crop insurance scheme, over 40 million farmers have received benefits worth 20 billion US dollars. Under the farmer scheme, assistance worth over $40 billion has been given to 110 million farmers. Institutional credit worth 300 billion US dollars is being given to farmers. India is not only ensuring food security but also focusing on nutrition. The Saksham Anganwadi and Nutrition 2.0 campaign, which is an integrated nutrition support program, focuses in particular on nutrition for pregnant women, newborn babies, children under the age of 6, and adolescent girls. Through the midday meal scheme, special attention is also being paid to the nutritional needs of school going children. The Prime Minister said that India is also contributing to global food security. India provided humanitarian assistance to Malawi, Zambia, and Zimbabwe recently. The Prime Minister noted that the main reason for our success is our approach back to basics and march to the future. PM Modi remarked that we have focused not only on natural farming and organic farming, but also on new technologies. Besides, India also focused on sustainable agriculture, protection of the environment, nutrition, and food security by promoting Shri Ann or millets. India developed more than 2,000 climate resilient crop varieties and has started the Digital Agriculture Mission. India's digital public infrastructure enables social and financial inclusion. Besides, India created a new model for inclusive development that strengthens the weakest link with the aspirational districts and blocks project. The Prime Minister also said that India supports Brazil's initiative for a global alliance against hunger and poverty. This is an important step towards the implementation of the Deccan High Level Principles for Food Security adopted at the New Delhi summit. The Prime Minister also highlighted the concerns of the Global South, saying that the countries of the Global South are most adversely impacted by the food, fuel, and fertilizer crises caused by global conflicts. He said that discussions can only be successful when we keep in mind the challenges and priorities of the Global South. And just as we amplify the voice of the Global South by granting permanent membership of G20 to the African Union during the New Delhi summit, we will reform institutions of global governance. With input from Gautam Roy in Brazil, Fuzail Ahmed reporting for DD India.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi met several world leaders in Brazil and discussed ways to improve and strengthen bilateral ties. One of the major bilateral was of Prime Minister Narendra Modi with the United Kingdom's Prime Minister Keir Starmer on Monday on the sidelines of the ongoing G20 summit. Both the leaders underlined the importance of resuming the free trade agreement negotiations at an early date and expressed confidence in the ability of the negotiating teams to address the remaining issues to mutual satisfaction, leading to a balanced, mutually beneficial and forward-looking free trade agreement. So this was the first meeting between the two prime ministers. The two prime ministers, Starmer and Modi, reaffirmed their commitment to strengthen the India-UK comprehensive strategic partnership. PM Modi announced the establishment of two new consulates in the United Kingdom, in Belfast and Manchester. They also exchanged views on issues of mutual interest, including on international and regional issues of significance. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also held bilateral meetings with leaders of France, Italy, Norway, Portugal, Egypt and South Korea on the sidelines of the G20 Summit. Details of these bilaterals in our next report.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi held bilateral meetings with a number of world leaders on the sidelines of the G20 Summit in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. Prime Minister held talks with the French President Emmanuel Macron. The leaders agreed to advance cooperation between both countries in sectors such as space, defense, energy, technology and more. The leaders talked about how India and France will keep working closely in sectors like space, energy, AI and other such futuristic areas. Prime Minister also complimented Macron on the successful hosting of the Paris Olympics and the Paralympics earlier this year. Prime Minister also held a bilateral meeting with his Portuguese counterpart Luis Montenegro. The talks focused on adding more vigour to economic linkages. Sectors like renewable energy and green hydrogen offer many opportunities for more collaboration. The leaders also talked about strong defence relations, people-to-people linkages and other such subjects. Prime Minister noted that India cherishes the long-standing ties with Portugal. Besides, Prime Minister Modi also met with Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni on the sidelines of the G20 Summit. The talks centered around deepening ties in defense, security, trade and technology. Leaders also talked about how to boost cooperation in culture, education and other such areas. Prime Minister said that India-Italy friendship can greatly contribute to a better planet. Besides, Prime Minister also met with Norwegian Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Store. The discussions focused on ways to deepen India-Norway bilateral relations, particularly in trade and economic cooperation after the signing of the India-EFTA TEPA. The leaders also exchanged views on geopolitical issues. Prime Minister held a bilateral meeting with the Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto. Taking to social media platform, Prime Minister said that this year is special for both countries as we are marking 75 years of diplomatic relations. Talks focused on improving ties in commerce, security, healthcare, pharmaceuticals, among others. Fuzail Ahmed's report for DD India.
On the sidelines of the G20 Summit in Rio, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar met his Chinese counterpart Wang. The leaders noted the progress in the recent disengagement in the India-China border areas. In a post on X, External Affairs Minister Jaishankar said that both sides also exchanged views on the next steps in the bilateral ties. They also discussed the global situation. So, as Prime Minister Narendra Modi's next destination on his three-nation tour is Guyana, the upcoming state visit to Guyana is set to strengthen bilateral ties across various sectors like trade, energy and agriculture. To discuss the significance of this visit and India's growing partnership with Guyana, DD India's Siddhant Bhardwaj spoke exclusively with Dr. Amit Telang, India's High Commissioner to Cooperative Republic of Guyana.
This will be the first visit by any Indian Prime Minister in almost 5 decades. To talk more on this, I have been joined by India's High Commissioner to Guyana, Dr. Amit Telang. It's an exciting moment for both India and Guyana. Incredibly pivotal moment for both the countries, isn't it?
The diaspora and the Indian community in general are looking forward to this visit because traditionally our two countries, they are very closely bound because of the culture, the common culture and traditions. And the fact that many of the Guyanese, they consider India still as their motherland because their ancestors came from India, and that connection in fact is still alive. They look at India, and especially in the recent years, considering the profile of Honorable Prime Minister Modi and what he has done, his global profile, everyone is excited.
What do you have to say about diaspora's role in bridging the gap between both the countries?
Since 2019, when the actual exploration and the oil extraction started in Guyana. Today Guyana is one of the major producers of crude, and in the coming years probably the production is going to increase even more than that. And on the other hand, there is India or Bharat, for example, because we are also one of the fastest growing major economies. We are the major I would say in terms of development as well. We are experiencing a very fast growth, and we have a lot of demand for oil. So we are among the major consumers of oil today. So we are natural partners, I would say, because Guyana is a major producer, we are a major consumer, and the kind of relationship that we share, I think it's a win-win situation.
Could you tell us about how this visit will strengthen the energy ties between India and Guyana?
We have received requests from the Guyanese side, especially for example in skill development, because this kind of activity requires a lot of technical expertise, a lot of infrastructure, and we will be in a position to provide that to Guyana. Even if we talk about, say, petroleum engineering and exploration and many of the allied areas, we can work in that area. So I think MOU of course is very much on the anvil, but I can also say that the cooperation has been ongoing. A lot of engineers from the Ministry of Natural Resources and other agencies, they are going to India, they take courses in India under the iTech program and various other options that we offer. So I think already a lot of cooperation is happening, and it will increase further as an outcome, of course, of this MOU, but in general also as an outcome of this visit.
Well, thank you so much, Ambassador, for giving your valuable insights today.
You're watching Need India News. Are still to come on the show. Climate talks continue in Baku. India's Kirtivardhan Singh to present views on collaborative solutions to fight climate change. Lebanon Hezbollah agreed to US proposal for ceasefire with Israel. US envoy to travel to Beirut for further talks.
G20 meeting taking place in Rio on the 18th and 19th of this month. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be participating here as well, along with the leaders of the world's 20 largest economies who will be deliberating on key issues such as eliminating hunger and poverty, sustainable development. For all the latest on the 2024 G20 Summit in Rio, join me, Gautam Roy, only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I am Tanvi Taneja. Next updates from the UN climate talks underway in Azerbaijan. India's Minister of State for Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Kirtivardhan Singh, is in Baku for the COP29 summit. Taking to X, the minister said that he was looking forward to presenting India's views on collaborative solutions to combat climate change while respecting the principles of equity and common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities. He added that the global gathering offers an opportunity to move towards achieving the goals set by the Paris Agreement. On Monday, the letter of intent officially establishing the Baku COP Presidency's Continuity Coalition for Climate and Health was signed. WHO Director General said that the initiative unites the visionary leadership of 5 COP presidencies that span this critical time for action, underscoring a commitment to elevate health within the climate agenda. He added that this coalition represents a collective will to prioritize climate and health now and for the future. Also at the COP29, the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure announced a total of $8 million in funding for 12 projects across 18 small island development states in the Caribbean, Pacific and Indian Oceans at the COP29 in Baku, Azerbaijan. The funds pooled from India, Australia, EU and the UK mainly support infrastructure and capacity building. The funds will be implemented for projects such as strengthening resilience of key infrastructure like schools, hospitals, power systems, health, water security and more. The funds are expected to get dispersed within the next 4 months.
Today we have announced the second grant, which is going to 18 countries for 12 projects. We want to make sure that we are supporting the right kinds of projects that are supporting innovative, good quality infrastructure resilient
The Green Climate Funds has partnered with the Secretariat of the Pacific Regional Environment through funding and the empowerment of Pacific youth in leading campaigns on climate action in their respective countries. The Academy will support about 60 Pacific Islanders aged 18 to 30 to launch and drive public-facing campaigns to scale up climate action that is in tune with their respective cultures and traditions. GCF and SPREO are supporting youth. Fights with funding which is fitting and long overdue.
Initial seed funding will enable Pacific Islanders to identify, capture and tell their own stories of climate adaptation, mitigation, resilience and most importantly justice. Stories that will inform and inspire their own communities and those further afield. At the same time, this multi-year initiative will create employment opportunities and professional pathways for young Pacific Islanders across various disciplines, including digital marketing, project management and creative design.
Children are also part of the climate solution, and it will require their basic human rights of involvement and space in the decision-making of COP29. This was the highlight of the UNICEF press conference at COP29, where children joined the panel and shared their views on many related issues, including climate impacts on children's health, physical well-being and education. Youth environment activists say children need to be included for effective actions.
We need your help to create a future where no child has to choose between their health and education, where no child drinks unsafe water or misses school because of climate-related issues, where every child has the chance to grow up healthy and educated.
On to the crisis in West Asia now. The flickering flame of peace in the region gained some strength and momentum when Lebanon and Hezbollah agreed to a US proposal for a ceasefire with Israel. This is the most serious effort yet to end the fighting on Israel's northern border. We have a report.
US Special Envoy Amos Hochstein arrived in Lebanon for truce talks with officials on Tuesday. Hochstein, along with many French officials, have spearheaded the efforts for a ceasefire in Israel-Hezbollah war, which began in late September. Details of the proposal still remain unclear after it was delivered last week by the US ambassador to the Lebanese parliament speaker, Nabi Berri, who has been backed by Hezbollah to negotiate. World powers stress that a ceasefire must be based on UN Security Council Resolution 1701, which ended a 2006 war between Israel and Hezbollah. Its terms require Hezbollah to move weapons and fighters north of the Litani River, that is, north of the Israeli border. Israel has dealt big blows to Hezbollah since late September, killing its leader, Nasrallah, pounding wide areas of Lebanon with airstrikes and sending troops into southern Lebanon. Meanwhile, the ground situation remains tense on both sides of the border. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has admitted that despite a debilitating attack on Iran's defense production capabilities, its path to a nuclear weapon has not been entirely blocked.
We will still be tested for our ability to thwart the Iranian nuclear program. It's not a secret. It was published. There is a specific component in their nuclear program that was hit in this attack.
The UNSC on Monday called for a surge in assistance to reach people in need in the Gaza Strip, warning that the situation in the Palestinian enclave was getting worse. Bureau Report, DD India.
Russia and Ukraine, this conflict reached its 1000th day on Tuesday, leaving human and economic scars on both sides. The fight continues with exhausted forces fighting on many fronts, Kiev under constant drone and missile attacks, and politicians getting ready for Donald Trump to retake the White House in January. Whereas earlier, in a boost for the conflict-stricken country, US President Joe Biden gave the green light for US missiles to be used against targets deep inside Russia, potentially limiting its options to launch attacks and supply the front. Though President Volodymyr Zelensky hoped to do his best to end the conflict next year through diplomatic means, but he has emphatically shut down any talk of a ceasefire before proper security guarantees are provided to Ukraine. Meanwhile, the United States continues its support to Ukraine and will announce additional security assistance for its ally in the coming days.
The United States will continue to surge security assistance to Ukraine, including artillery, air defense, armored vehicles, and other needed capabilities and munitions. And we will announce additional security assistance for Ukraine in the days to come. Because ultimately, supporting Ukraine in Congress and beyond it cannot be and should not be a partisan issue. Standing up for democracy and human rights is above petty politics and outlasts any one leader or term.
Georgian police dispersed an opposition protest in Tbilisi early on Tuesday, arresting several people. The protesters had set up tents and barriers at a major junction near Tbilisi State University and for its security to protest the results of last month's parliamentary election and demand a new vote. The October 26th election kept the governing Georgian Dream Party in power, but opponents say that the vote was rigged. Many Georgians viewed the election as a referendum on the country's effort to join the European Union. On to New Zealand now. Thousands rallied in front of the parliament on Tuesday in one of the country's largest ever protests to oppose a bill that seeks to alter indigenous rights. Massive crowds, estimated by police at 42,000, gathered at Parliament, where the Treaty Principles Bill was introduced earlier this month by legislators. At the heart of the protest is the 184-year-old Treaty of Waitangi, a historic agreement between the British Crown and the Maori chiefs that underpins New Zealand's governance. Protesters argue that the bill dilutes Maori rights by reinterpreting key clauses in the treaty. The demonstration highlights a fierce determination to defend indigenous rights against perceived threats. On to Asia. In a landmark trial, Hong Kong court sentenced 45 activists on Tuesday for up to 10 years with conspiracy to commit subversion under a national security law imposed by China. A total of 47 pro-democracy activists were arrested and charged in 2021. The activists were charged for plotting to paralyze the government by engaging in potentially disruptive acts had they been elected. The government of China and Hong Kong said that the Democrats have been treated in accordance with the local laws to restore order after mass pro-democracy protests in 2019. US and Australia have called these detentions as a political move. Taiwan also said that it condemns the move and stands in solidarity with Hong Kong. And next we take a look at other stories making news around the world. Several students were injured on Tuesday after a car crashed outside a primary school in central China's Hunan province. The incident happened just over a week after a driver rammed his vehicle into a crowd at a sports center in Zhuhai in southern China. At least 35 people were killed and 43 severely injured in the incident. Late Quincy Jones was posthumously awarded an honorary Oscar at a star-packed Hollywood gala on Sunday. A group of singers led by Jennifer Hudson paid homage to Jones with a musical performance. As images of the producer at work were shown on screens, the renowned music producer and composer Quincy Jones died from pancreatic cancer at the age of 91. Still to come on DD India News Hour. Elon Musk's SpaceX launches India's GSAT-N2 satellite on Falcon 9 rocket from Cape Canaveral. And UK PM Keir Starmer announces relaunch of UK-India Free Trade Agreement. We discuss the potential of this FTA with our guest. welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Tanvi Taneja. Quick relook at the headlines we're tracking at this hour. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has announced that UK-India Free Trade Agreement will be relaunched in the new year. This free trade agreement, as we know, is a treaty between two and more countries that aims to reduce or eliminate trade barriers. This was one of the key deliberations between the two nations on the sidelines of the G20 Summit in Brazil yesterday. India-UK FTA talks began in January 2022. And the 14th round of UK-India FTA negotiations took place in March 2024 in New Delhi. And Pinak Ranjan Chakrabarti, former Secretary in India's Ministry of External Affairs, joins us on what G20 has achieved so far and the potential of UK-India Free Trade Agreement. Welcome, sir, to the program. First of all, how productive would you say the G20 has been so far in practical terms, in terms of actual outcomes or likely outcomes?
Well, I think it's a process rather than, when you get rather than expecting immediate results. For example, the climate finance, for example, which has been stuck at the COP29, and the G20 leaders would have to do something to get that fund moving, to all the pledges that have been made. Because climate change adaptation and mitigation efforts are very important, and we can see how climate change and various factors are affecting all countries, including India. So I think that is one of the major outcomes that we can expect, that the climate financing fund should be there. Apart from energy security and food security, which are the two major issues, poverty, hunger, etc., particularly in the global south, where I think the focus has been, and India has highlighted these problems earlier also in the New Delhi summit, and now at the Rio summit, that India has again pushed for these things. So we have to keep pushing and getting some movement on these issues, and hence the summits become important because the leaders are there to take those decisions.
Yeah, so speaking at the G20, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that India supports Brazil's initiative for a global alliance for hunger, against hunger and poverty. I beg your pardon. How are you viewing this alliance?
Well, it's a good effort in the sense that if it, but what I would like to see the more, read between the lines and see the micro details as to what does it mean? Would it mean that there will be, food stocks kept all over the G20 countries, the vulnerable countries, so that people don't go hungry in times of famine or lack of food or, some kind of climate disaster. So I think we'll have to get into the details of these agreements if they emerge from this summit, and that would be a good thing for the global south, because they need it. Energy, for example, how do you ensure that they get access to proper energy at reasonable prices?
Okay, and let's also discuss about this very important bilateral that took place yesterday between India and the United Kingdom. What do you think have been the stumbling blocks so far in negotiating a free trade agreement between India and the UK?
Well, I think the main issues have been the Indian proposals that on allowing more Indians to visit, immigration issues, and of course it's not so much about tariff, because in the UK is in any case a major trading partner of India, and the UK's willingness or unwillingness to accommodate India's requests, and India on its part has not been willing to accommodate UK's requests on lowering of tariffs on some of their major exports to India, like whiskey and stuff like that, and that are very popular in India, as you know, and these are some of the issues. But I think the UK is now, I think, more willing to accommodate India's requests, and let us hope that this FTA will finally see the light of day.
Okay, UK Prime Minister Starmer said that trade talks with India will relaunch in the new year. What specific areas are the India-UK trade talks likely to cover, and what are going to be the likely goals being aimed at by both countries?
Well, the likely goal of any FTA is to increase trade so that it moves, goods and services move seamlessly. So I think that is the those are the main issues. From India's side, services is very important. From their side, some goods, which they produce, which are popular in India, are important. So I think basically how to ease that flow will be the core issues there. And tariff will be something that India will have to look at, provided UK looks at India's requests on services and immigration and things issues that are of interest to India.
Okay, Prime Minister Starmer and Prime Minister Modi also reaffirmed their commitment to strengthening the comprehensive strategic partnership, focusing on new and emerging technologies, research and innovation, and green finance. Do we have some more specifics here, and how India stands to gain from a partnership in these areas?
Well, UK is quite a leader in many of the technologies. If you remember during the COVID, the vaccine we used was created in the UK. That was then produced in India under a different name, under a collaboration. So UK has certain leadership, in certain areas of technology, which would be beneficial to India. And that is what we want to access. And technology transfer has always been one of the major issues that India has pursued with various countries, developed countries, obviously, because they have the technologies that sometimes we need for meeting our own demands. So that is one of the major issues in an FTA with UK.
And the need to progress on issues of migration and mobility. We heard that 2 new consulates are going to be, have been announced actually.
Yes, that's a good thing because UK has a lot of people of Indian origin and they need consular services. And those who live in the north, for example, have to go all the way to, I think, Birmingham or to Edinburgh. So I think Manchester is a very good idea because that area also has a lot of population of Indian origin and also Indians living there, working there, studying there. So I think that's a good idea. I would welcome that, and I think everybody would welcome it.
And Prime Minister Narendra Modi also noted the importance of addressing issues of economic offenders from India in the UK.
Yes.
A word on this.
That has been a long-standing issue, and we have been taking it up with them for a very long time. And they, of course, say it has to go through our legal process, etc. But then the legal processes are such that sometimes they seem to, deliberately impede the extradition or handing over of these economic offenders. I think the whole world knows that people with money who have committed economic offenses find London a very hospitable place to live in. And because they bring the money there, which goes into the British economy. And unfortunately, that factor sometimes, and plus the legal system, which can be convoluted and it goes on for years before any decision can be taken. And then again, there are appeals, and it's a very long process to extradite anybody from.
Okay, so several bilaterals happened yesterday, sir. So India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar met CPC Politburo member Foreign Minister Wang of China on the sidelines of the G20 Summit, and they exchanged views on the next steps in bilateral ties. What could these steps be from here on?
I think more normalization, particularly on the trade front, visa front, then airline, connectivity that was stopped. Then several other things. Both sides will have their own demands as to access, and China's, sometimes the controls that they have, restrictions on transfer of certain items that impede India's acquisition of certain, manufacturing, items. These are the whole range of issues that will be discussed. Slowly, I think gradually, step by step, these things will be taken up. And hopefully, once the border is fully settled in the sense of, that we go back to the original, situation that was there before the Chinese decided to create this conflict. And so now it seems that that process is perhaps on, and when it is completed, the other processes of normalization will kick in.
Okay, quite a productive day. It has been on day one of the G20, and another productive day awaits us on day 2 of the G20 Summit in Brazil. Thank you very much, Pinak Ranjan Chakrabarti ji, for putting all this into perspective for us. All right, marking the first commercial collaborations between the Indian Space Research Organisation and Elon Musk-owned SpaceX successfully launched the ISRO's communication satellite GSAT-N2 from Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida on Tuesday. India's Union Minister of State Dr. Jitendra Singh took to X and congratulated ISRO and SpaceX for the successful launch. He further said that under leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, collaboration between ISRO and SpaceX aims at enhancing internet services, including in remote areas as well as in-flight connectivity, with a mission lifespan of 14 years. The advanced communication satellite was launched using SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket. And IFFI 2024 is going to be held in Goa and is set to witness many firsts this week, from the launch of Prasar Bharati's OTT platform to having the first ever IFFI along with honouring the legends of Indian cinema and hosting the alumni. IFFI has a lot to showcase globally. DD India's Deepika Meheto spoke exclusively to the Joint Secretary Films on what's in store this time at the film festival.
The preparations are in full swing for the 55th edition of International Film Festival of India, and right now we have with us Ms. Vrunda Desai, who is the Joint Secretary Films here. Ma'am, thank you so much for exclusively talking to DD India. How are the preparations going on for the festival?
Thank you so much. Preparations are in full swing. As you can see, there's a lot of enthusiasm, and the whole space, is reverberating with joy and celebration at Goa here.
First of all, we would like to talk about many firsts that we are witnessing, right from the panoramas and the films that we have included this time in the 55th edition to the kind of space we are giving to women. How is the platform looking like this time?
The theme of the 55th IFFI is young filmmakers. So the entire focus is on getting young filmmakers on board to give them a platform and to showcase their talent. And this year Australia is the country of focus, and we have the opening film from Australia, as well as there is a roundtable conference between the producers, the Indian filmmakers and Australian filmmakers. We are showcasing 46 movies from women filmmakers in this 55th IFFI.
Ma'am, when we talk about India and Australia, both of them share a very good bilateral relationship overall politically as well. And now when we talk about cinema also, both of them are going to share a common platform. What are the expectations from the country of focus this time?
Yes, so we already have an audio-visual agreement with Australia, and this is an effort to take it forward.
When we talk about buyers, Film Bazaar is the first thing that comes to our mind. Tell us more about that.
That is a platform where the buyers will meet, and it will give a boost to the economy, the film economy.
And when we are talking about film economy, digital economy has to be also spoken about, because if he is going digital with the online portal, tell us more about that.
Yes, so the portal of India Cine Hub is going to be launched in the opening, that is on 20th. And it is a single stop window for all the filmmakers who want to come and shoot here. So all the states have been onboarded on the portal, and it has all the data of the states as well as the details of the locations of each state, and it also has details of the filmic and non-filmic resources of that state. Also, we are launching an online marketing portal on which we will onboard all the buyers and the sellers.
And Prasar Bharati is also going to launch its OTT platform on the opening ceremony. How are the preparations for that, and what are your views on it?
I think a lot of content would be made available there. We have a lot of archival movies, documentaries, and also it would act as a platform for the content creators, the young filmmakers, to put their content.
The 55th International Film Festival of India is all set to just roll out and enthrall the entire global audience. With camera person Alok, this is Deepika reporting for DD India.
You're watching DD India News. Are still to come on the show. President Dissanayake urges the IMF to maintain a balanced approach in its economic recovery plan, considering the hardships faced by Sri Lankans. And in sports, Indian women's squad announced for ODI series against Australia beginning December 5th. And Saudi Arabia unveils the first look of the King Salman Stadium that's set to be the showpiece of the 2034 FIFA World Cup.
G20 meeting taking place in Rio on the 18th and 19th of this month. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be participating here as well, along with the leaders of the world's 20 largest economies who will be deliberating on key issues such as eliminating hunger and poverty, sustainable development. For all the latest on the 2024 G20 Summit in Rio, join me, Gautam Roy, only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I am Tanvi Taneja. Next, on to some business news. The International Monetary Fund delegation, led by Senior Mission Chief Peter Brough, is in Sri Lanka to assess economic policies of the country, progress on ongoing reforms, and the implementation of previous agreements with the IMF. The team met Sri Lankan President Dissanayake and key ministers of the newly formed government at the Presidential Secretariat today to discuss the next steps in the IMF program. President Dissanayake urged the IMF to maintain a balanced approach that considers the hardships faced by citizens. He assured that under his leadership, social spending allocations would be utilized effectively, with priority given to combating child poverty and malnutrition and providing better support for differently abled individuals. Upon successful completion of the review, the global lender is expected to release the next installment of the loan worth $330 million to Sri Lanka. The Moody's ratings downgraded its outlook on the Bangladesh economy to negative owing to heightened political risks and lower growth forecasts following the recent political and social unrest that led to a change in government there. Moody's also lowered Bangladesh's growth projections to 4.5% from 6.3% for the fiscal year 2025. According to Moody's, Bangladesh's political risk has increased following the recent social unrest that led to the resignation of former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. It also highlighted that with the elevated social risks, the absence of a clear election roadmap, the deterioration of law and order, and the nascent re-emergence of community-based tensions also raises political risk. The negative outlook reflects downside risks to Bangladesh's growth, which could further strain the country's already weak fiscal position and exacerbate external vulnerabilities. Next news from Germany. The country has long complained about a lack of skilled workers, and the country's economy has been paying a price for it. Now, some German companies are appealing to the government to step in and help. Lars Holte is with Deutsche Welle and joins me from Berlin now. Lars, what are you hearing about this latest initiative by the government?
Thanks for having me. Yes, indeed, Germany is having massive problems filling skilled and specialized jobs. Much of it has to do with the country's demographics. Over the past few years and also for the next couple of years, we will have the so-called baby boomer generation retire. That's a massive part of the German workforce. And there are not enough young people coming after to fill those jobs. So we've been having problems in all kinds of business sectors. It takes longer to build homes. It's hard to find plumbers and electricians. There are not enough nurses and people working in care. And yes, in the high-tech field, there's so much unfilled demand for skilled workers that it's been slowing down progress. Now, the Association of German Startups says that the government should cut bureaucracy and lower hurdles for immigrants, make it not only more attractive for people from abroad to come and work in Germany, but make it easier and faster. Here's just one mind-boggling fact about immigrating to Germany for work. You can't actually file for a work permit if you can't provide a lease for an apartment. However, it's almost impossible to find an apartment and rent from abroad, like before you're even here. It would be so much easier to let people come here, start work, and deal with finding accommodation then.
But how attractive is the German startup sector for immigrants anyway, Lars?
I guess it's very attractive. The sector is growing fast. This year, over 500,000 people are working in young, innovative companies here. That's 100,000 more than even a year earlier. Within those startups, 30% of employees are immigrants, and it's 45% in so-called scale-ups. That's companies that are currently outgrowing their startup phase, and they are hiring and getting bigger. The official work language is usually English, which is certainly attractive for people from abroad. Most of them at this point are coming from India and Bangladesh. No surprise there, as those are countries with a high amount of very skilled tech workers that are in high demand in Germany. But there's also people from Africa, from Ukraine, from other European countries, and even from the US. That last one might be interesting to keep an eye on, as many are asking what's going to happen in the US under Trump 2.0. We might see people trying to move abroad and work elsewhere.
Thank you very much, Lars, reporting from DW Berlin. Time now for some sporting action. First, updates from the field of tennis. The season-ending Davis Cup 2024 final scheduled to start in Spain on Tuesday. It promises to be an emotional affair for the tennis world, as Rafael Nadal is set to bid farewell to the sport after the campaign on home soil. The 22-time Grand Slam champion announced in October that he would retire after representing his country for the final time on home soil in Malaga, bringing an end to one of the greatest careers the sport has seen. However, it still remains to be seen whether Nadal is fit enough to play a singles match for Spain against the Netherlands, or whether he once again teams up with Carlos Alcaraz for the doubles. Now, opener Shafali Verma has been dropped. Harleen Deol is set to return to the national team after almost a year, as the Women's Selection Committee announced the 16-member Indian women's squad set to be led by Harmanpreet Kaur for the upcoming 3-match ODI series in Australia. Deol last featured in the 3-match home ODI series against the same opponent in December 2023. She wasn't included in the squads for the home series against South Africa and New Zealand this season. The first 2 ODIs will be held at the Allan Border Field in Brisbane on December 5th and 8th, respectively, before the action shifts to Waka Ground, Perth, for the final match of the series on December 11th. The series is part of the ICC Women's Championship. Saudi Arabia has unveiled its design plans for the King Salman Stadium, a 92,000 capacity facility in Riyadh set to be the showpiece of the 2034 FIFA World Cup. The Saudi Sports Ministry unveiled a promotional video made with computer-generated imagery to offer a first look at the stadium, which is scheduled to be completed in the 4th quarter of 2029. The stadium is set to serve as the main base of the Saudi national team and will be part of a sports complex featuring an indoor sports hall, an Olympic-sized pool and other facilities. Although still not officially confirmed by FIFA, Saudi Arabia are almost certain to win the rights to host the 2034 World Cup, having been the only country to formally submit a bid before the deadline in late 2023. And India is set to host the first ever Kho Kho World Cup at the iconic IGI Stadium in New Delhi from January 13th to 19th, 2025. This marks a landmark moment in the world of traditional sports. In a major boost to the tournament, the Indian Olympic Association has officially confirmed its partnership with the World Kho Kho Federation of India, pledging unwavering support for the event. The Kho Kho World Cup will feature both men's and women's teams, with a stunning 24 countries from 6 continents set to compete. The multi-nation high-energy tournament is poised to elevate Kho Kho to new heights, generating excitement and sparking worldwide interest in the sport. With IOA's backing, the World Cup is set to become a defining moment in the sport's history, inspiring athletes and fans alike to embrace Kho Kho. So that's it for this edition of DD India News Hour. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on our different social media handles. And you can also download our DD India mobile app for quick news and updates on the go. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. We'll be back with more news as it breaks air on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from all of us here in New Delhi. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.